Yeah, let the big dog hunt. Hello again, everybody. Joe Staszak along with my man Steve Kallas right over there. Time for another edition of Kallas Remarks with yours truly and the man of the hour. Steven, how you doing, my friend?
Oh, good, Joe. Great to be with you as always.
Yeah, I know you sent me a text here. They said, when's football start? Because soon there's going to be nothing to really talk about that's any, impactful. Stanley Cup is over. We'll talk about that in a second. Of course, the NBA Finals just getting underway. And Phoenix, these Suns who won 19 games 2 years ago, are 14-4 in the playoffs. They're just rolling, folks. I thought Milwaukee was the best team 2-3 years ago. I thought that this was maybe their time, and I like the way they're constructed. But I don't know how, I guess since I'm in Philly and we're pulling out our hair with the process, and we won 51 games a few years ago, and we haven't gotten out of the second round, they come out of nowhere. When Mikal Bridges went to Phoenix, I felt so bad for him. Because I'm like, he's going to a 19-win team. He scored 27 points the other night in Game 2, leading scorer in Game 2. And again, it wasn't really that close of a game. Every time Milwaukee tried to make a move, the boys were, bombing away from deep. Chris Paul and the Crowder signing, and I know Dario Saric is out now with an ACL. DeAndre Ayton, the way they put that team together so quickly to me is amazing. And it's, I know you picked the Suns, and I got to give you credit. I picked the Bucks, but it doesn't look like I don't think the Bucks are coming back from this. I think Phoenix is that good. What are your thoughts?
Well, now you feel bad for the Sixers because they drafted Bridges on draft night. Remember, I think his mother works for the Sixers.
He does.
And it was like the happiest day of everybody's lives.
For about 12 seconds, and then he gets traded to.
Yeah, but now he's getting the last laugh because
Totally.
They have a big chance to win, obviously. I will say a couple of things, though. Phoenix has been able, especially in Game 1, but even towards the end of Game 2 with Booker, they somehow, I don't know if Milwaukee's going to change. They switch everything. And in the first game, it was totally Brook Lopez trying to guard these guards, and especially Paul, and he just can't. They combined for 59 points in Game 1. And were just about equally good in Game 2. I thought they had tried to do something in Game 2, but later in the game again, at the end, it seemed to be Booker on Lopez, Booker on Lopez. If it's Paul on Lopez or Booker on Lopez. And oh, by the way, I think that's hurting Lopez's offense. He only had 8 points in Game 2. And my view of him throughout the playoffs was like he's hitting threes all over the place. And now he must be getting tired. I don't know. I think they shouldn't switch on Paul and on Booker. Obviously, it hasn't worked. Now, maybe you'll tell me it's because it's 2 games at home. But boy, Phoenix looks awful good. And you're right. They've rebuilt that team in 3 years. Booker's a superstar. He was always a great scorer. Now he's a superstar. He gives Chris Paul full credit. Chris Paul has found the fountain of youth. He's been incredible in the prior series, 41 in that last game. But he can score when he wants to. Booker can score when he wants to. If they don't change that, I don't even know if it'll go more than 5. You got to give him 1 in Milwaukee. And the other thing is, I think Antetokounmpo is good. I think he's healthy. He was dominant the other day.
Dominant.
But he's getting no help. And again, I love Middleton, but if Middleton's not around, if Holiday's not around, give them credit. They won that Game 6 against Atlanta when they didn't have Antetokounmpo.
Right.
Trae Young wasn't Trae Young, but he did come back for Atlanta. And,
right.
Both of them played out of their minds. I think Middleton, didn't he have like 23 points in the third quarter, 16 in the
He was unbelievable. Where's he going? The shots aren't. I heard them talking to the coach, where they stand 6 feet apart, which is silly, in my opinion, visually. But anyway, Milwaukee's coach is like, well, we're just not making our shots right now. And they're not. Middleton's gotten cold. Lopez, like you said, 8 points. The Greek Freak is killing it like everyone expected him to. And I don't even think he's totally 100%, but he's just killing it. And they're just not – their shots aren't falling.
Well, I will say this, though. We talk about the 3 – I say, oh, tell me the 3 points, and I'll tell you who won. But in Game 1, Milwaukee shot 16 for 36 from 3. That's pretty good, and they still lost by 13. So I thought that was a big red flag. And then, yes, in the Game 2, they shot Phoenix shot 20 for 40 from 3. This is what the NBA is now today. 20 for 40 I mean, when they put in the 3-point line, you could probably go a week without the league taking 43s. I mean, it was just, it's, analytics, I get it. Some people I know think it's ruined the game. And, I partially think that because what do you do now? You come down and 4 guys run to 4 spots. One guy tries to go to the basket, and anyone who comes to help, they throw it to the 3, whoever's open for the 3. And now all you're going to get every year is better and better shooters. I think they have to move the line back. And already, I don't know if that, you see where Curry and Lillard, guys like that, Trae Young, you see where they're shooting threes from. At least they haven't made a 4-point shot yet, which I'm hoping they don't do.
I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for the 4. Maybe half court.
Because I did hear recently that Adam Silver said, yeah, I kind of like this 7 to 10 play-in thing at the end. I think we might make that permanent. And I'm like,
oh, no.
You're going to have the team in 13th place, is 12 games under 500, saying, if we can only win our last 3 games, we might sneak into the 10th spot, and then anything can happen. And it's so disgusting. But they have to do it. They have to keep you occupied. It's like the NFL with extra teams in the playoffs, and always, of course, hockey and the NBA always had 16. Now the NBA is going like 20. I mean, come on. It's just, I'm sorry, it's pathetic. It's only about one thing. Don't tell me about the excitement and the fans. If your team is 500, you're mediocre. You shouldn't even be thinking about it. And you know how unhappy I was when baseball went to the wild card, because baseball was the last holdout. You had to win your division. You had to win something.
Yes,
now, winning the wild card means you're at least second place.
Yes.
So it's all across the board. I mean, it's not just basketball, but basketball, if they actually make the 7 to 10 thing permanent, and if Adam Silver thinks it's a good idea, it will be permanent. And everybody loves the extra money, the extra play-in games, or they playoff games, or is it the 16 against the 16 in the NCAA tournament to get beat by 20 by the 1, except for once in the history of the tournament? I think it's disgusting, but this is where we are. And it's not going to change, because if it leads to more of this, it's not going to change. But hey, give Phoenix a ton of credit. But if Milwaukee doesn't do something, and I've heard a lot of criticism of Budenholzer, who was on the hot seat before the playoffs started. Now he's in the finals. I can't believe he's on the hot seat. But they got to make an adjustment. They can't just switch automatically and leave Brook Lopez out there. And I'll say it again, nobody's really talked about this. I think it's killing him on the offense. This guy makes threes as well as any big man in the league, I think. And he made a bunch of them in the earlier rounds, but he's been, I think, tired. And I'll say it again, 8 points in game 2 isn't going to get it, especially when Middleton's scoring like 11 points in game 2. So Antetokounmpo can't do it by himself. We've already seen that. And, we'll have to see what happens. But it's, to beat them 4 out of 5. Now, the Clippers did it twice, right? This postseason. I think the Bucks were down 2-0 in one series and did it once, but it's a big ask. And I think you're right too. I don't think Antetokounmpo is quite 100%. You saw him limping around that time. A little bit,
yeah.
I thought he should have missed the first game to get 2 extras. I mean, it didn't matter. They didn't win either game, and at the end, the games weren't close. They were close for a while, but we'll have to see what happens. But right now, huge props. Can't be unhappy if Chris Paul gets his first
ring, of course.
In his 16th year.
16th year. We talk about it a lot historically, especially in the last 5-10 years. The super teams. LeBron and Chris Bosh and what's his name? The other guy from in Miami. Anyway,
Dwayne Wade.
Thank you, Dwayne Wade. And the Kevin Garnett's and the Ray Allens and, the team they put Paul Pierce in Boston and whatnot. And you look at LeBron and you look at Anthony Davis. Who would you consider a superstar on Phoenix? I know Chris Paul is their superstar. Is it Devin Booker? Is it the fact that I'm not even sure? And the only reason I might take a little from Chris Paul is he's 36, but he's still, LeBron's almost 36 and still doing it. So he doesn't look like he's lost a step, but I'm not like that team doesn't strike me as having like the 2 and 3 major players. They just seem to have a lot of good role players and very good A players.
Well, I'll say this year they have a big 3, in my opinion. Booker's a superstar. They have a big 3, I think, in Booker, Paul, and Ayton, with Ayton kind of playing the role of Chris Bosh, for lack of a better analogy. Okay. But Paul this year as a leader and as a scorer when need be, playing injured. They said he had like torn ligaments and partially torn ligaments in his right hand. 41 in that clinching game. He knows this is his chance. They might get another chance, maybe, but don't forget, everybody on every team got injured, and there's been some criticism of Phoenix of, Kawhi getting hurt, Anthony Davis getting hurt, that kind of stuff. Would they have won all these series if these guys didn't get hurt? It doesn't matter. All you can do is play who shows up at the game.
That's all you can do.
The schoolyard, whoever's there is there. Right. So they get full credit if they win it. And, Chris Paul had his own injuries. But I think for purposes of this season, with these injuries, and Booker and Ayton have not missed time. So I think it's Booker, superstar, Chris Paul, an okay number 2 if you're talking to me about big threes. And Ayton is the 3 who's getting better and better and better. So, yeah, I think obviously they have enough. But again, it'll all be couched. When somebody writes the history of these playoffs, the title is going to be the injury playoffs. Phoenix wins it all, or the injury playoffs, Milwaukee wins it all. But that's how it is. Again, you can only play. But I've never seen, and I don't think it's true, the NBA has put out numbers that the injuries this year were kind of the same. There's no chance ever in the history of the NBA that all these teams lost superstars who couldn't play multiple games in virtually every series. So that's never happened before. So I understand what the NBA is trying to do. And LeBron's criticism of the short off season, et cetera, et cetera. But Anthony Davis looks like a guy who's always going to get hurt, frankly. So that's a problem for them forward looking. And I don't know if LeBron sees that window closing now, because if AD gets hurt, they don't win. If LeBron gets hurt, they don't win the championship. If either one of them gets hurt this year, last year, or next year, they don't win. So we'll see what happens. But no, I give all credit to Phoenix. But if Milwaukee can't fix the high pick and roll switching, they virtually have no chance, in my opinion.
Jay Williams, former superstar at Duke, got that motorcycle action. I think he's a great analyst for ESPN. Seems like a really good dude, too. Talked about it was embarrassing watching them try to switch and play defense the way they were doing it. It was at the halftime of game 2. Do you question their effort at all, or the strategy in terms of who they're switching off? And because it kind of was embarrassing, but for him to say that, he said, this is embarrassing watching Milwaukee try to play defense right now. What did you think?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's effort, but I do think it's the system. If you're in the huddle and you say we're switching everything, okay, you can try that. And then when, I think now Paul and Booker have combined for 113 points in the first 2 games. And it's the largest combination of points for 2 players since the merger, 1976-77 season. So you're talking 44 years. This is the highest. And it's directly related to them deciding to have Ayton set a pick. And then Brook Lopez has to pick up Booker or Paul. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's got to be, I'm going to guess of those 113, it's got to take foul shots out of it. So I'm going to say it's 50 or 60 points have to be on Brook Lopez. And it's also hurt him on the offensive. And oh, by the way, when he's guarding these guys 23 feet from the basket, he's not getting any rebounds. So I understand you got Antetokounmpo there, but they're a dominant rebounding team when Lopez is near the basket. So I think it's embarrassing the way they've decided to play. And Brook Lopez is the guy who gets embarrassed because he's a 7-footer who's a good defensive player inside, who's a good 3-point shooter. And now he can't do either of those. I think one because he's tired and the other because he's 23 feet out guarding Booker or Paul, neither of whom he can guard. And everybody knows it. So they have to change. I'd be shocked if they don't come out with something different. Either you got to fight over every pick, or I don't know if you'd put somebody, I don't know if you want to put Antetokounmpo on Ayton because I don't know who Brook Lopez guards then. But Antetokounmpo, obviously more athletic, et cetera. Is he hurt? Maybe a little. But they have to do something or else this might be 4 games. Might not even be 5 games. But if they keep switching Brook Lopez, it won't go more than 5 games, in my opinion.
I agree with you. It's just going to be over pretty quickly if they don't make a change. Let's talk a little hockey. 3 years ago, we were laughing at the Tampa Bay Lightning, and John Cooper at the ESPYs, they whoever was hosting, I forget, poking fun of them for being out, 4 games after winning 62 that year. And I'm thinking, I wonder how long you keep a guy who, fails so magnificently in the postseason that he's got to go through another postseason. And sure enough, they win in Edmonton and in the bubble, whatever. They win again. Tampa Bay. It's obviously they're a mini dynasty right now. They've won 3 cups now. It's pretty good for an expansion team, not from the 67, 68 years, 66, 67, the Flyers and the Kings and whatnot. But they seem to do it. They're a very well-rounded team, and they do have the superstars and Kucherov and Stamkos, the big-time goal scorers. Braden Point had that streak where he scored like 8 straight games. And then, of course, the netminder, Vasilevsky back there, is kind of the unsung guy. We talked in the Game 7 1-0 shutout. He wasn't even named in the 3 stars. And he comes back again in a closeout game, shuts out the Canadians, 4 shutouts in closeout games this year. He does win the Conn Smythe. He probably just edged out Kucherov, who had 33 points. But in Kucherov's press conference, was amusing on a lot of levels. He basically, gave it up for Vasilevsky, thinking he's the greatest player. And the guy from Vegas, your guy, Marc-Andre Fleury, he talked about winning the Vezina and it was BS and blah, blah, blah. But Vasilevsky did a phenomenal job in that team. It just when they had to, they clamped down.
Well, I think it might be the passing of the torch. I love Carey Price, greatest goaltender with Lundqvist never to win a cup. I thought after they beat the Maple Leafs, and I like the Maple Leafs, but he played out of his mind in those 2 overtime wins. They seem to be on that magical ride that a basketball team can't get on.
Yeah.
A hockey team can get on with a hot goalie. They were 16th in points in the playoffs, the Canadians. So to make it to the finals is a miracle. I thought he was a Conn Smythe contender at the start of the series. I even read articles afterwards that he should have been the Conn Smythe for the whole playoffs. But Vasilevsky so outplayed Carey Price. Carey Price said after the final game, he said, I just didn't play well enough at the beginning of the series. And he's right. And then Vasilevsky had that 42 save performance in Game 2. And that really ended it. So the big debate now, because all these young goaltenders grew up, Carey Price is 33 or 34, been in the league for 14 years. First Stanley Cup Finals. You're almost kind of rooting for him to get one.
Yeah.
Like Lundqvist, if he had stayed with the Caps, he couldn't play this year, or wherever he plays next year to get one, But I think the torch has been passed. I really do. And I love Carey Price. But a lot of people are saying, no, not yet, no, not yet. Most of that was before this finals. Their stats were very similar. And look, Carey Price doesn't have the supporting cast that Vasilevsky had. That's very true. But Vasilevsky not only had the 4 shutouts in the deciding games in this series, last year in the cup clinching game, there was a shutout as well. He's got 5 in a row. Nobody, of course, has ever done that.
Wow.
So they're going to be good for a long time to win 2 in a row. And you get a guy like Colton, who's like a midseason pickup. And, those are the kind of guys who scored the goal. It was a great pass from Savard. Wasn't even the goal scorer. And Carey Price had no chance. That's the other thing I'll say. A lot of these goals, he had no chance on that.
No chance.
So, but he was a little soft early on by his own admission. And maybe if you're a Canadian from Canada lover or a Montreal Canadian lover, you'll still say Price is better because he really did put a 16th ranked team on his back and take them to the finals. But Vasilevsky came up big when he had to, a shutout in every closing game, 42 saves in Game 2, only lost the overtime. I think I told you in the middle of the finals, I saw a stat on NBC that said, I believe Vasilevsky is 11-0-2 against Carey Price lifetime. So now he's 13-0-3 because give the Canadians credit, they did win that overtime game in Montreal 3-2, and Price played great, including in the overtime.
He did.
But I think they're just overwhelmed. You said it. They've got Tampa as the superstars, and those look. I got to talk about McDonough, former captain of the Rangers. First Ranger captain to win back-to-back cups. Of course, not with the Rangers. They've never won back-to-back cups. But he played so well. I think you're not going to give it to a defenseman, rarely if ever, but he made some incredible plays. And he played great, blocked shots, got some assists, made some incredible. Everybody talked about his timing, how he'd wait for the right second to make a pass. And you don't usually see that. So he'd be third and Kucherov second. They could have given it to Kucherov. But I think Vasilevsky with all the shutouts, and although they were equal coming in, and that means Carey Price stood on his head, they were not equal in the finals. And again, if you switch goalies, would Carey Price win the cup with Tampa Bay? Yeah, he would, but that's not how the game works.
Unfortunately, it's not how the game works. You know what I thought was impressive, and every Stanley Cup winning team does that. In fact, Gretzky talked the first year that they played the Islanders in the finals and lost. He walked by the Isles dressing room, and you could look in. Everyone's got black eyes, noses out to here, swollen legs, things saved up. They did a great job, and this is sacrifice, and it's what happens if you need to make a championship run. But guys were blocking Shea Weber shots. He's got a cannon. Guys were leaping off, and the next shift they'd be out there. I know it's hockey, and they say hockey, I tell you, he's a hockey player, which is amazing. But he takes a shot off the ankle from Shea Weber in the third period. He's out the next shift. He had to get help to the bench. His teammate was pushing him. He's out the next shift. I forget who the defenseman was, but just the sacrifice that goes into it is just amazing.
Yep.
And I thought that Tampa Bay did that. So they have some cap issues. I know it's early to talk about next year, but and it is hard to win. I mean, God, the last time teams won 3 in a row, maybe the Canadians in the late 70s don't. No, the Oilers.
Islanders
won 4. You're right. How's Tampa looking next year if they can keep the core together?
They're looking good. I mean, what can I say? They didn't even get a lot from Stamkos in the playoffs. Kucherov missed the whole regular season. Stamkos missed the last 6 weeks. Kucherov has now replaced Stamkos as the number 1 guy for sure.
Yeah.
But I'll say it again. Stamkos last year got the biggest goal. He played 3 minutes. He got the biggest goal in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
And I think that spurred them to a finals victory. I really believe that. But, they've got some good young under the radar players. Their defense is pretty good. And I think they have the best goalie in hockey. And if they don't, he's number 2 to Carey Price. But I think that torch has been passed. Although, again, I think there's still that underlying Vasilevsky is a Russian. Carey Price, I think, is from British Columbia. There's always been that since the Russians came into the NHL, led by Don Cherry. He always seemed to be pro-Canadian. I don't want to say anti-Russian, but whatever. But I think Vasilevsky has passed him. And look, you're on the team that you're on. Carey Price isn't going anywhere. I assume he's coming back. But Montreal, the young players, Suzuki and that whole group, they're really good.
Really good.
This under their belts. They're a threat next year. They won't be 16th in points next year when the playoffs come along. And they still have the great Carey Price. And I'm going to guess now that he has a taste of it, he wants to taste it again. And of course, he wants to win it. And if they can equal the talent gap, I don't think they're going to be better than Tampa Bay next year, barring injury. But if they can make it a little closer, then when Carey Price stands on his head, it might be 2 or 3 or 4 wins instead of 1 win.
Sure. Yeah. It's, and I do like you mentioned it earlier, how a hockey team, in hockey, a team can get on a roll, one of those magic rides, coming in 8th place or the 16th team with points, and just make that ride to the finals, which was an incredible run. And I guess next year we're going to start on time and probably finish early June with no more finishing in July or September. So, by the way, that is 3 world championships for the city of Tampa in 282 days. That's the quickest it's ever been done. Like, are you kidding me? Really, Tampa? And why is it? Can I ask you a question? I talked to my buddy about this. Usually at a big event, NBA finals, and I've seen it like in LA when the Kings were in the finals, 93. There's usually some big names at the game, and they'll show cutaway. Why isn't like Brady at that game the other night, or Gronk? You don't want to go see, I don't know. Why is it? I didn't see anybody yet.
I hate to say it this way, but hockey is just, it's a distant fourth. We love it, but it's a distant fourth. Assuming it's still 4th, which it may not be. And I didn't read the article, but I did see a headline that said, the ratings were pretty bad for the Stanley Cup Finals. Well, partly because it wasn't a competitive series, partly because it's hockey. And, I feel terrible because we love hockey.
I know.
Better. Why do I think if Brady wasn't there? I think it's hockey. I think if Tampa Bay is in Game 7 of the World Series, I think a Brady would be there. But, they all go their own way. I can't really answer that. You're right. There should have been some support. And especially, I don't know where the Tampa Bay Rays are, but if I'm a baseball player, I'm definitely going to a hockey game. There is no basketball, obviously, in Tampa Bay, although I wonder if they'll make a push now to somehow try and get a team in Tampa Bay in the NBA. I don't know what the expansion deals are, but they are the city of champions also with Tampa Bay doing really well, not winning a World Series, but, they've got 3 live teams every year and they only have 3 teams.
Isn't that incredible? That's unbelievable, especially if you live in Philly. But let's talk a little baseball.
We're going to move there. We're going to move to Tampa Bay so we can be.
I got to move to Tampa. I was there with my dad Super Bowl week, and I was just amazed how little the hoopla was for the Bucks. Maybe 3 buildings I went by had "Go Bucks" on it. Like this, Philly, they would have burned the city down if it was Philadelphia, especially coming off and then winning 2 cups. What? 282 days, 3 parades. That's unbelievable. But hey, you got to dance with the girl who brung you. And I guess I'll stick out the rest of my days here in Philly and just be miserable. But anyway, let's talk a little baseball because your guy, and I love him too, but I just think I marvel what he's been doing because he pitches too. And Sarahar-Ohtani hit one into the upper deck in Seattle. That's like 463 feet, one of 6 players to ever do that. And, home run's a home run if it goes 331 feet, 460. But, I mean, the guy's phenomenal, and he's got 33, leads the league. Why are we so impressed with what he's doing and compare him to the Babe? Is it because of the because he's the dual position, or is it because he's Japanese? I mean, is he Sarahar-O that's playing over here now in the MLB? I mean, what is this guy?
I think it's because of the dual thing. Nobody's done it but Babe Ruth. As we talked off camera, if you're an American college baseball player or you get drafted out of high school, if you're a pitcher, you're not batting. I know a few guys who went to North Carolina who were great hitters. They became pitchers. They never batted ever. So when they get to the majors, there's no chance. It has to be someone from a foreign country who can do what Ohtani's doing. But he was a monster in Japan. In Japan, they only pitch once a week. They pitch like every Saturday. And that's interesting. But what Ohtani's done, and I wrote a long thing on Facebook at Speaking of Sports about Ohtani and the Babe. The Babe really only pitched and played the field in 2 years with the Red Sox in 1918 and 1919. Now, 1918 was still the dead ball era. He was 13-7. He hit 11 home runs, and that led the majors. In 1919, he pitched a little less, and he played a lot more in the field. He was 9-5, and he hit 29 home runs. Now, at the time, 29 home runs was the all-time record in the history of the major leagues. The next year he goes to the Yankees. I think he pitched 2 games and went 2-0, but he hit 54 home runs. That's the beginning of the live ball era. So it's even hard to compare what he did with what Ohtani's doing. Ohtani is 4-1. He started 13 games. So I don't know if he'll get to 9-5 or 13-7, but that's as much because of the way games are today. I think they should pitch Ohtani in every doubleheader they play so he can pitch 7 innings and have a better chance to get wins. But Ohtani has 33 home runs just before the All-Star break. Who knows if he'll hit 1 or 2 today or tomorrow, but he leads the majors in that. His ERA was microscopic until he gave up 7 runs in 2/3 of an inning against the Yankees 2 starts ago. And he didn't even get the loss because they scored 7 in the 9th to beat the Yankees. That's a Yankee problem, not an Angels problem. And then he just won his last start to go 4-1. The other thing I want to say is, yes, he's the first player in the history of baseball to be elected or appointed or voted to the All-Star team as both a hitter and a pitcher. But in 1918 and 1919, there was no All-Star game. The first All-Star game was 1933. And I don't have to tell you who hit the first home run in the history of the All-Star game because it's Babe Ruth. But what he's doing is incredible. And it's even more incredible when you actually research the Babe, who in like 14, 15, 16, 17, was a dominant left-handed pitcher, winning World Series with the Red Sox. 18 and 19 were really the only 2 years he did both. Ohtani, I don't know how long he's going to do both, but he's already been doing both. And to do it in today's world, I think is even more incredible because Ruth did it for a limited time for those 2 seasons as a member of the Red Sox. And then the Yankees, I think, kind of saw what he was. I even did a thing on Ruth as a Yankee. He was 5-0 as a pitcher for the Yankees. His ERA was 5.52. But obviously, they made the intelligent decision. We're going to play this guy 154 games, which is what it was back then, or as many of those games as he plays. And the Angels have to kind of manage Ohtani, but he's got 33 home runs and he's 4-1. So what he's doing, I would argue, is even more incredible than what Babe Ruth did over 100 years ago.
And we're not seeing too many other Japanese players. I mean, Hideki Matsui a few years ago, when I went to work the World Series in 2009, there were a lot of outlets from Japanese television there covering Hideki Matsui. I'm sure Ohtani gets plenty of action in terms of coverage. Back in Japan, they're probably going nuts. You know, they like to see their players do well because this is the best league in the world. And Sarahar-Ohtani never really played over here. 868 home runs and whatever. Where does like the Matsuis and the Ohtanis and the Sarahar-Ohs, where do they all come? He's 81 years old. A lot of people never saw him play. But I'm just saying, is he that iconic in Japan? Do you think Ohtani right now was Hideki Matsui?
Oh, absolutely. And I throw in Ichiro, of course, not a power hitter, but I throw him in as well, because he's, I think, one of the 15, 20 best players who ever lived. 10 Gold Gloves in a row, 10 200 seasons in a row. Nobody's doing that. But it is interesting taking Ichiro out of it. Matsui was a pretty strong guy. Ohtani, 6'4", 210 or whatever he is. He's a massive physical specimen. Most of the Japanese players are not. And I don't want to talk down about Sarahar-Ohtani, but the Japanese league was always believed to be kind of a little better than AAA, but no way was it the major leagues, especially way back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. So I'm not taking anything away from him.
No, I understand.
But for example, in my opinion, Ichiro played 6 or 7 years in Japan, and people want to add those hits together to say he's the all-time hit king. He's not, and I love Ichiro. But had Ichiro come to the U.S. a few years earlier, to me, I think he would have beat Pete Rose, but he didn't come here. So I give him all the credit in the world. To me, I'll say it again, he's one of the 15 greatest players who ever played baseball, period. Sarahar-Ohtani is from another time. And again, did he do it against AAA pitching? Did he do it against what they sometimes call 4A, quadruple A pitching, which is kind of, the guy who comes to the major leagues now who killed it in AAA, when he fails in the major leagues, they go, oh, he's a 4A player.
Right.
He's a little better than the AAA guys, but he's not quite the major league guys. I don't know what Sarahar-Ohtani would have been. And I understand he's the Babe Ruth of Japan.
Right.
But the notion that he's Babe Ruth, I just don't agree with. Ichiro, however, who again played 6 or 7 years in Japan, he started at like the age of 17. If you dropped him over here and he needed whatever he needed, 400 or 500 more hits, he would have got, I forget how many Ichiro has, but he would have beat Pete Rose, but he's not the all-time hit king Pete Rose is.
Right, sure.
And so I think now you've got to be more of a physical specimen like a Matsui or an Ohtani, but we'll just have to see what comes in the future because there are other players, but they're not big-time stars like Ichiro. Matsui was the star. He hit 615 in that 2009 World Series. That really made him. And yeah, they go in Japan, they go nuts for these guys. I saw the 60 Minutes thing on Ohtani, which they repeated a few weeks ago. He's like a god over there. It's
I would think so.
But that's what he is. And what he's doing now is unheard of either here or there forever. So I don't know how long he can do it for. There's been talk. Maybe he should do one or the other. Seems to me he's doing both pretty well this year.
Pretty well, yeah, right?
And so we'll see what happens. But he's a super duper star. And again, I think Ruth is the greatest player, team player who ever lived because of the combination of pitcher, hitter, hit more home runs than teams, et cetera, et cetera. I still think he's the home run king because he hit 60 and 154. Maris hit 61 and 162, and everybody else was on something. So I still think it's Ruth and Maris. And don't forget, I don't think there was an asterisk. My recollection is I've seen record books that had at the beginning 154 game season, record holder Ruth 60, 162, record holder Mara 61. Somehow they stopped that one day. And I'll give you another one. George Sisler had the record forever, 257 hits in a year in a 154 game season. Ichiro beat that. He got 262, but then 162 game season. So if you gave Ruth 8 more games, you think he would have hit 1 or 2 more home runs?
Yeah.
If you gave Sisler 8 more games, you think he would have got 5 or 6 more hits? So I think those guys are done a disservice. And they should have. Look in football, it's a joke now. 12 game season, Jim Brown at the beginning, 14 game season, OJ 2003,
yeah.
2003 yards, Joe Namath 4,007 yards in the 14 game season. Now 16 game seasons obliterated all those records.
Mm-hmm.
That's not right. There should be a 12 game record book, a 14 game record book. Maybe nobody wants to be bothered. Postseason home runs versus World Series home runs. Maybe nobody cares about this stuff, Joe, but as you know, I do.
Now, of course you do. And I've never seen him play, but I got to say, a physical specimen does not come to mind when I watch video of Babe Ruth. So I'm still impressed that the way he looked and his reputation of eating hot dogs, drinking beer, and womanizing the night before games. He shows up, hits 3 home runs, 3 for 4, throws 6 shutout innings. I'll still give it to the Babe right now, but Ohtani's got a little ways to go. Hey, let's wrap up because I know you had. I want to hear when your thing is on with Rick Wolf tomorrow. We're taping this on Saturday morning, but the NIL, names, image, likeness. You mentioned it last week, and you're so right on with the 3 words, the wild, wild west, because it is exploding. And you mentioned the 2 quarterbacks from Florida State, Derek King from Miami. Now, there's a company in Miami. It's a business called American Top Team. Has finalized plans to offer all 90 scholarship players at the University of Miami collectively $500,000 a month to disperse it between all those players for in return for marketing and branding their company. I mean, this is, like you said, it's like shoot them up. Everyone's got the 6 shooters.
Well, if you've gone through college with no money like I did, and you probably did as well, $500 a month per player, and all you got to do is be on the team.
Right.
A lot of kids are going to Miami. Now, the question becomes now, it seems to me, these other schools have to try and find a way to match it.
Right.
And that's the wild, wild west part of it. So the show tomorrow, which is on from 8 to 9, WFAN, that's WFAN.com in New York with Rick Wolf. It's his show, The Sports Edge. I'm on it with another ESPN guy, Noah Savage, who played basketball at Princeton and is much younger. So he'll have different views than we have. But, it's gone through the Supreme Court now. That was only limited to education-related expenses. But Justice Kavanaugh had a 5-page concurring opinion where he essentially said the NCAA violates the antitrust laws all the time. And they can't do it. And they can't do it anymore. So as of July 1, this past week, it became the wild, wild west. 7 states, including Florida, had passed laws where you could profit from your name, image, and likeness. The best thing I saw, which is so funny, Arby's, the fast food place Arby's with the roast beef, they put out a tweet and it says, we've wanted to pay RB little less forever. So if you're a college RB, please email us with an email address. And they obviously want to hire some great college running backs, RBs, to do commercials for Arby's. So there's so much fascinating stuff, but we go into it in pretty good detail. But someone should write a book on it immediately because it's incredible what's happening. And everybody's got some kind of angle, meet and greet, autograph session. The quarterbacks from Florida State and Miami, they're part of a company. I think it's called Dreamfield.
It is.
I saw an ad for a meet and greet and autograph signing, $2,000 for either one of them. Now, I don't know if they're going to get $2,000 for either one of them, unless the meet and greet is with like 100 people. I don't know what their autographs are worth, but you're going to find out. And I go back to, so what would Trevor Lawrence have made last year?
Oh my goodness.
What would Zion have made 2 years ago at Duke if he could have done that? But you're going to have those kinds of stars. But I think it's going to go to a lot of, the one other thing I'll mention in Georgia, there's a guy who owns a men's clothing store, local guy. They have 12 stores in Georgia. One's in Athens, where Georgia is, University of Georgia. He's already announced he's paying 2 football players, but also a baseball player, a track and field person, and I want to say maybe a lacrosse player. I'm not sure. But my point being, it's not just going to be D1 football players and D1 basketball players.
Sure.
They'll get the money. They'll get the big money. But anybody with anything, if you have a big social media thing, you're going to get some money. If you're willing to do, appearances, you're going to get some money. And if you're in a place like Nebraska, Nebraska has hired a company that was formed by a former Nebraska linebacker, who they're paying him $250,000 to handle everything for the Nebraska guys. And they have a team thing for Nebraska as well. But if you're a big shot in Iowa or Nebraska or South Dakota, think of what Carson Wentz could have done at, where did he go to college?
North Dakota State.
To me, if you're not in a major metropolitan area, you can do some real good, it seems to me. And a lot of colleges, you think they're going to do okay in Tuscaloosa if you're an Alabama football star? I think so. So UConn women even, with Calipari, not with Calipari, with Gino Auriemma, Calipari at Kentucky. I've already seen his name in with some of the players. Like, you can sign him up for $400 and get these players for $100. You need more money, John? I guess you do. But whatever. So it already is the wild, wild west. It's literally changed overnight from June 30th, 2021 to July 1, 2021. The NCAA has put in interim rules, which is kind of a joke. The NCAA has been told what they do is essentially illegal, and there'll be cases running through the courts on all this stuff as well. So I think it's fascinating. Yeah, WFAN.com tomorrow from 8 to 9. Probably starts at 8:05 after, they do a sports update. But it's an interesting show. It's an interesting topic. And again, we haven't seen anything like this in the history of college sports. It just literally changed overnight.
One last thing before we go, bro. I don't know if you know this. Carson Wentz is certainly not in the category of Tom Brady. When Tom Brady went to Tampa, Chris Godwin said, "Here's my number 12." I mean, it's Brady. You bow, you do whatever he wants when he walks in the locker room. Carson Wentz can't seem to garner the number 11 from a second-round pick, Michael Pittman Jr., who had 400 yards last year and has to wear number 2. What do you think of that? Do you think it should be up to whoever, or should the teams, want to make the quarterback happy, or is it just between players once they're handed out? Does it matter?
I think when you own the number, you own the number, and I would have thought that Wentz would have either politic for it from day one,
right,
or be willing to pay. You hear some guys want a ton of money or a ton of whatever. So what, you're not going to pay it on principle if you want the number that badly? You're not making enough money?
Right.
So I think it's just stupid.
Wentz is the number 2 now.
I think it's just so stupid. But to me, it's the guy who has the number.
Right.
I don't know why Wentz, when he walked in the door, didn't immediately give. I don't know what his first contract was. I know what his second contract was. But they were all in the tens of millions of dollars. So what's the big deal if the guy wants 100,000 or 200,000?
Right on check.
The principle of the thing. I mean, come on. So it's really. But there are some stupid stories surrounding numbers. But when Tom Brady walks in the room, you just bow down.
Here's my job. Don't even ask. Here you go.
I want you to win the Super Bowl with number 12 on your back, and that's what you did. So
you did. Good stuff, man. Hey, great stuff as usual, man. Again, Steve Kallas, we're taping this on Saturday. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock on WFAN. It's 660 on my dial, and WFAN.com. You can listen to him and Rick Wolf talk about the NIL. You can also follow Steve on his Facebook forum page. Speaking of sports with Steve Kallas, and also his videos at WestchesterCountyPost.com on YouTube. You can find this podcast on YouTube every week, also on my Facebook page, and we're here every week. We usually tape Friday morning, taping Saturday right now. NBA Finals, we should have a champion by the next time we chat, and then clear going until football, which is coming the end of this month. Football starts, believe it or not. All right, we're back. I know it's only training camp, and I'm big on that. It's coming, brother. Yeah, I know you're looking forward to it, man. Thanks again.
Always a pleasure, Joe.
You too. I appreciate it, folks. Enjoy your week. Be safe. We'll talk to you next week.